Let's bring in Lydia Miljan. She's been standing by in Windsor as we've been covering this here. It is an uphill battle, isn't it, for Trudeau these days?
It is. I mean, he's got to really try to sell the things that they're putting in there to help Canadians. And obviously, this is a very targeted message to people in Saskatchewan. He's focused very much on Indigenous health, which I think everyone can agree is a really important file. And I think that him emphasizing the benefits and the additional funds that he's putting towards Indigenous health and Indigenous education is probably the best he can do. The problem obviously is he still has to answer how he's going to pay for all this largesse, and his Chrystia Freeland's only attempt really to pay for anything is this capital gains increase in the tax, and it's not seemed to be getting very much love by anybody. And I think that comment from most recently from the Canadian Medical Association really hits home. I mean, you can say that yes, doctors make disproportionately higher incomes, but they also have disproportionately higher demands on them, both in terms of the regulatory framework, but also in the fact that they have to pay their staffs and they have to fund their offices. And so when they get to retirement, that really is their retirement fund. And so for that to have an additional tax on that could have a chilling effect on us trying to recruit more physicians to this country.
Lydia, you and I have been covering Justin Trudeau for the last 8.5 years since he became Prime Minister, and the party as well, through 3 successive elections. I wonder if the Liberal viewpoint here is the following. If we can only talk directly to Canadians, if we can only get our message across to them, we can convince them our plan is great. And the problem may be people are not listening anymore.
Oh, I think they're listening. I just don't think they like what they're hearing, because ultimately this is the same prime minister who said that the budget was going to balance himself, that he also said that, we were going to have modest deficits and go to a plan, going to balanced books. So we heard that, and that's not what's happening. So I've said this many times, they are very good at overpromising and under-delivering. And people are feeling the brunt of that the inflation is really hurting Canadians. And so they're saying, okay, we gave you a shot. We gave you 8.5 years. If you don't have anything new to provide us, and if you can't deliver on all these really high and lofty promises, then maybe we should look elsewhere for some relief, because clearly this budget doesn't seem to be anything new. It's essentially more of the same, and it seems to be more pain rather than more gain for a lot of people. And I think that's where the frustration is. So I don't think that they're not listening. I think that they're hearing what they have to say, and they just don't accept it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some data from Abacus, which is a polling company. David Coletto runs that one. And, again, it's early, but there doesn't seem to have been much movement in the polls in the week since that budget came out. The Conservatives are still around, 20 points, give or take, ahead of the Liberals. That's huge. And, in terms of young people and others, there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement for Trudeau either. Again, it's early going. This is part of what we're seeing today in Saskatchewan and elsewhere, is trying to sell the budget.
Right, but let's remember, it's not just since the budget, it's since before the budget. This is a government that had this new communication strategy, was to basically tell us about all the goodies pre-budget. So you would have expected to see some of those poll numbers improve, especially with the targeted measures towards younger people, 18 to 40-year-olds. And I saw the same poll in other polls, and it seems to me that in every single demographic, the Liberals are losing. They're losing regionally, they're losing with women, they're losing with men, they're losing with young people, old people, you name it. And so they're trying some, all credit to them. They're trying what they can to get more eyes on their budget and to sell it. They brought in influencers for the first time to the budget lockup in the hopes that the influencers will be able to go on TikTok or whatever social media that's popular today and be able to help sell the budget. But that's a big risk, because there's no guarantee that those influencers will in fact support this budget or say that it's good for their constituents or their viewers. And so this is a big risk. It's not like they're, at least what I've heard is that they haven't paid those influencers this time. They've only just allowed them that early access in the hopes that they will be supportive of the budget.
The Conservatives are ahead of the Liberals, Lydia, in every region of the country except Quebec, where the Liberals are still competitive, and there it's often a 3, sometimes 4-way race, because you got the Bloc Québécois as well as the NDP. But in other parts of the country, the Conservatives way ahead, and this is a lead they have maintained for, almost a year now.
Indeed, and I think it's apparent not just looking at regions. Obviously Conservatives have always had sort of a stronghold in Alberta, but they are leading by significant numbers in Ontario, where let's face it, that's where a lot of the seats are. But more, I think, crucially, they're also leading in areas that have, at least for the last couple election cycles, been very favorable to the Liberals. When you look at those numbers of Atlantic Canada, the Liberal fortunes have really fallen and the Conservatives have really risen. And this is after the carve out for home heating oil last summer that was really directed specifically, as everyone admits, towards those Atlantic votes. And so that didn't work. So you have to, if you're the Liberals, you sort of have to step back and go, okay, we keep on giving goodies, we keep on targeting it to certain areas, and that's not working. And so they have to maybe think they have to have a different strategy or different policies at the table, or dare I say it, different leadership to try to sell their vision of Canada.
Do you think there'll be any tweaks? Hearing from the Canadian Medical Association on the capital gains tax increase, do you think they may go back now between, the point where the budget has to be voted? And just try to make some changes? Or are they basically thinking, well, this is what's best for the country, and perhaps Canadians won't be all that sympathetic toward doctors who, the perception anyway, is make tons of money?
Well, the perception might be that, but also Canadians want to have a doctor. So I think that we're pretty much accepting that the way the fees are structured, we want to encourage more doctors to come to this country rather than discourage them. I think the choice between having a doctor not pay capital gains and having a doctor in your neighborhood is pretty clear to most people. I think they would prefer having the actual physician there, especially when they realize that doctors have to pay the salaries of their support staff, they have to pay their rent, that the money that they're getting for their service isn't directly going into their pocket. There is a lot of cost to that profession. I think that if they were prudent, they would sort of step back from that capital gains. And there's a way to do that. There's a way to say, okay, we've heard from Canadians, we've heard from a wide variety of sources. And this is friendly Liberals. Former Finance Minister Bill Morneau said this was a bad idea, and all the major economists to all other interest groups are saying this is really not the way to go, really punishing people who can't really afford to be punished at this time. So there's a way out for them. The problem is that their partner in all of this is the NDP, and they tend to be in favor of taxes, and they might be supportive of this. Now, Jagmeet Singh has been a little bit cagey this time around, hasn't really stated whether or not he's going to support this budget. And, could they risk getting rid of the capital gains? Could that be the thing that tips the NDP to the no side? There's a lot of things that they would have to deal with moving forward to make sure that this budget gets passed with the support of the NDP.
Lydia Miljan joining us from Windsor. Lydia, thanks for this. We're still waiting for Justin Trudeau to take questions. Some other speakers have now approached the lectern, so we'll thank you, and we'll go to those Q&As once they begin.